Okay, and away we go. Zok the Hedek Gemara. We're going to start from the Mishnah again, even though we learned it already, because it's really a new Indian. Ezehu tam. What is a tam? A short time that pays chati nezek migufay. Pays a moed. What is it? What no moed? Pays a muad. What is a muad that pays nezek shalom minolia? Muad is called sheheidu boy shloisha yomim. So the poshet of pshat is that 3 days in a row there was edus, and we know there has to be edus because Eino the Mishalem Knas al Piatzmai. There were edus 3 days in a row that animal stoiced, then it becomes a muad. The tam, and how does it revert back to being a tam? Because in fact, the Mishnah is telling us a chiddush that an animal could revert back to being a tam. When 3 days go by and the animal is in a situation where it would otherwise be able to stoice, it was together with other oxes, and it doesn't, that would prove that it's no longer a mood.
Right.
Thank you. Rabbi Huda. Meir Omer muad shoidu boy shloisha pamim. First of all, you don't need 3 days to become a mood. 3 times. If the animal stoishes 3 times, it's already a mood, even though it doesn't take 3 days. Vitam kol sheyuha tenoikos mimash mishum boy. If the children are playing with the ox, then negech. Now, yesterday I touched they negech. It doesn't stoish the kids, but that's not so poshut. Not so poshut at all. There are those who learn, as Tosus asks, what's the raya from the fact that it doesn't stoish a cotton, that it wouldn't stoish an animal? An adam has mazel, meaning an animal is by nature not going to stoish a person. If the animal is so docile, I think is the word for it. That's the word for it? Docile, like calm. Then the children are playing with it, and it's not hurting the children. Now, the Tosha by the parents learns that how you talking, it's not a right, it doesn't hit children. Children are still bar mazla. It means even if they're playing with the children and it still doesn't shtoish an animal. So if there's children around that play with it and get it labedik, and even under those circumstances, if it's near an animal, it doesn't shtoish an animal, that will be a riot that it's a tam. But whatever it is, it has to display character features that show that it's not aggressive. Rameir is not saying that if it had 3 days where it had an encounter with an ox, that it wouldn't be kamatam. He agrees, of course, with Rabbi Yehuda. Even if it happens in one day, it could show 3 times that it became calm. Okay. Near a day, so I'm sorry, I made a mistake. If it has one instance with children, that the children could make it labedik, and it still doesn't stois, that would be a right that became a tam. But the gimel pam b'yemechad near the moil d'idei l'chazor. But 3 times, if it's merely with animals and it doesn't stois, that wouldn't be enough for chazor. Even though Meir holds that it becomes a mood in one day, it won't become oish mood in one day just by being with animals. Okay, so we'll find Reb Shimon also, we're going to see soon in the Gemara, that even though you can become a mood in one day, but you can, even though you become a mood in one day, it still takes 3 days to become oish mood. Exactly, Gemara. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. Now, it's a very big shaila in what does it mean when an animal becomes a muad, when it shtoshes 3 times. Does that mean that it's a siman or is it a siba? Meaning, is the fact that it shtoshed 3 times that makes it a muad, or that merely shows us that it was a muad? It was really always a muad. We didn't know. The sign that shows us that this animal is in a muad is if it shtoshes 3 times. Or no, it's the shtoshing 3 times that is the mood. That is the mood because it shtoishes 3 times. So again, do we say that if it shtoishes 3 times, it shows us this animal always had those tendencies, and therefore we have to treat it like it's a mood? Or the shtoshing 3 times are the tendencies. They are the tendencies that make the animal wild. There will be an afkamina based on this shiloh that will come up a little bit later. Amar Abaye, it says, Vimshornagahu, mi temoil shilshem, velo yishmerenu. So temoil is chad, mi temoil is trey, and shilshem is tolosa. That's 3 days in a row, it has to do damage. Velo yishmerenu, the fourth, velo yishmerenu balov, also on the negicha revius. Rav Amar temoil, mi temoil is only chad, shilshem is trey, velo yishmerenu ha'idna chayiv. Now, at first glance, if you read Rashi, it sounds like the machlokes is it 3 times that make it into a muad, and on the fourth, it's chayiv nezek shalom, or is it 2 times to make it a muad, and the third time it's nezek shalom? Now, what happens to be a machlokes in chazaka, does 2 make the chazaka, like Rabbi, or does 3 make the chazaka, like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? And there's a shayla, that's what this machlokes has to do with. But you see clearly from Rashi that also negich revius means shalom shamrei v'nagach negich revius mishalom me'aliyah nezek shalom aval ashlish is palganiska hu de mishalom. So clearly, Rashi seems to say that the machlokes Abaye and Rav is how to understand Rabbi Yehuda. The 3 times that he's talking about, does that mean time number 4 you're chayiv nezek shalom, which is Abaye shita, or does that mean time number 3 you're chayiv nezek shalom, like Rav shita? Tosfos argues on Rashi for several reasons that become clear in the Gemara later. And he learns that both agree that only on the 4th time does the owner of the animal pay nezek shalom. But the machlokes is the 4th time dafka on the 4th day or even on the 3rd day. So Abaye holds, even though it shtosh 3 times in 3 days, if it shtosh the 4th time on that 3rd day, it doesn't pay nezek shalom. It's only on day 4, if it shtoishes a 4th time, does it pay nezek shalom. So v'lo yishmerenu means the next day v'lo yishmerenu. Rav holds once it shtoishes 3 times, it's a muad, and if it shtoished again, even on that 3rd day, it would still be a muad. That's how Tosfos learns the machlokes, Rav and Abaye and Rava, but either one agrees that until it actually shtoished 3 times, it would not be a muad. You wouldn't pay nezek shalom. Okay, Zok to Gemara. If Rav Meir said even 3 times in 1 day. My timer. What's the story of Meir? It's not from a pasuk. It's actually from a story. The Tanya Amar of Meir. Richek nigichoisav chayiv. If it's shtoished once a day for 3 days, meaning the nigichos were separated with time, it's chayiv. So they're not so concentrated. Kirav nigichoisav loikos. Okay. Surely, if the negichos were closer together, that should surely show a trend. That should surely be a siman or a siba that it's a shar move. Amrulay, so the Chum told him that's not a good svara, because I will illustrate to you in other parts of the Torah where you see that the chazaka could only be if it's spread apart and not where it's close together. Why? Because the halacha is we have the parsha of Zov and we have the parsha of Zova. And although they do have similar halachas, there are some very distinct differences between the two. One of the differences that we're going to focus on is how one becomes a zova, how a female becomes a zova gedolah. The way she becomes a zova gedolah is if during a period of time where she should normally not get nida, those are the 11 days between nida and nida, if she sees dam 3 days in a row, if she sees dam 3 times in 1 day, that means nothing at all. That's only like 1 riyah. But if she sees them 3 days in a row, then you say she becomes a zava gedolah. So zava techiach, you could bring her right from a zava. Sherichka riyah tmeya. If her riyos are 1 day apart, they're separated, they're far apart, only then does she become a zava gedolah. But kirva riyah, but if she saw 3 times in 1 day, tahira, she would be tar. By a zav, by the way, if he sees 3 re'is in 1 day, he's a zav. It's only by a female zav that has this rule. But if you have this overarching logic that the closer something is together, the more it should be of that, well, then by zava, you should say the same thing. Get the Torah teaches by zava that bedav if they're separated. That's the gzeres hakosov. So too the gzeres hakosov by Yashar Amud is it has to be separated by 3 days. Amar Lahen. So Reb Meir responded back to Reb Yehuda, what raya could you bring me from Zova? That's an anomaly. Harehu Aimer, there's a separate pasuk that's very specifically details that the Zava Gedolah has to see on 3 separate days. It says in the pasuk, "V'zois tia temasai b'zoivai." And if we look at that pasuk, the pasuk is speaking about a Zav, a male Zav, not a female Zav. And what does it say? V'zois tia temasai b'zoivai. This is a halacha of Ziva that only applies to a male. V'zois, specifically to this male. What is specifically to that male? B'zoivai, roar b'sari as zoivai, oyachtim b'sari mizoivai to masahi. The halacha by a Zav, if it has 3 riyas, never mind how many days there are in between, if no time in between. If a Zav sees 3 riyas, like the pasuk lists off, he's automatically a Zav. But v'zois, dafke him, dafke the Zav. But the Zav are not. So Zok to Gemara, Omar Leder, Meir said, don't give me a raya from Ziva, where Richak Riyoiseha is only Tameh, because I raya Omer v'zois tietemase b'zoivai. Tala kasuv es a Zav b'riyos. A male Zav, it's only Tyler in riyos. Ves a Zava b'yamim. And the Zava, the Baal Mamayit from Zois, we learned that she needs to see the riyos on 3 separate days. So Zok to Gemara, therefore, Dr. Meir, don't bring me a raya from Ziva. Ziva is an anomaly to special gilui in the past. Now the Gemara wants to know, the Gemara now is getting a little bit into the halachas of Ziva. Vizois is a miyut. But who said to apply the miyut? He teaches this halacha, that dafka b'yoy mechad could you become tamei, dafka are riyosh mitama by a zav and not a zav. Maybe mimai the high vizois lemute zava miriyos. How do you know this vizois is telling you that a zava is not like a zav, and she cannot become tamei merely with seeing 3 times? Ema lemite zav miyamin. Maybe to tell you vizois, the only way a zav could become tamei is by seeing 3 riyos, maybe in 1 day, but not in multiple days. Maybe that's what you see from vizois. Vizois is just a miyut. How do you know what the miyut is telling you? You're arbitrarily telling you, the miyut is telling you that a zava is not tamei b'riyos. Maybe what it's telling you is vizois, a zav only becomes tamei this way, and the zav cannot become tamei any other way. Amarkra, I'll tell you why I can't say that's pshat. Because the pasuk says v'azav es zoivai lazacher v'lanekeva. Although we have a pasuk of vizois that's say that this only applies to zav and not a zava, we have another pasuk that compares the zav to a zava, the zacher to the nekeva. Machis zacher lenekeva, as follows: ma nekeva b'yamim. Just like if a nekeva saw a riyah in 3 consecutive days, it becomes tamei as a zava gedolah. Av zacher b'yamim, so to a zacher would become tamei in that same fashion. Frank Gemara, who said to apply the hekesh to tell you that a zav is tamei b'yamim, and the miyut to tell you that a zava is not tamei b'yamim, that a zava is not tamei b'riyos? I'm sorry. Maybe do the opposite. The logish nekeva l'zachar to say ma zacher b'riyos af nekeva b'riyos, and therefore maybe learn nekeva from zachar that 3 riyos in 1 day will make her tamei. So tomorrow, because amiyot rachman v'zois, the zois tells you that only a zav is tamei b'riyos, not a zava. Maybe the zois tell you that a zav only becomes tamei with riyos and not with yamim. The Gemara mistavra, the svara is the pasuk of zois tia temase b'zoivai speaking about the riyos to the zav, right? The zois tia temase b'zoivai, rabbi sorah zoivai. Pasuk is discussing riyos. So mistavra kai b'riyos mimayit riyos. We're talking about riyos, and we're saying riyos only applies to a zav, not to a zav. But wouldn't it be logical to say kai b'riyos mimayit yamim? We're speaking about riyos, and it should be mimayit, that we're not talking about yamim for a zav, and therefore the Gemara feels that the most logical way to understand the psukim is vizois is telling us that riyos only works for a zav and not for a zav. Huh? And the hekesh from Zachat in the Nekeva is to tell you that just like in the Nekeva Yomim works, so too by a Zachar Yomim will work. Okay, Tanu Rabbanim. Back to our Shaila of Tam and Mud. Eizehu Mud, what is a Mud? Kol Sha'idu Boy Shlosh Yomim. If 3 days in a row it stoist, that would be a Mud. That is similar to the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. V'tam, how do you become a Tam? Shiyuati noikos mimash mishimboy ve'enin legech. Divrei Rabbi Yosy. So this is the Rabbi Yosy that Tosfos was referring to earlier. Rabbi Yosy is like a hybrid, right? He holds like Rabbi Yehuda in how it becomes a mud, But also Reb Meir and how it becomes back to a tam. Reb Shimon Omer, muad is called shida b'shalish pam, which is like Reb Meir. You only 3 separate days for chazara. Again, that's like Reb Meir. Amar Reb Nachman, Amar Reb Adar Bava, halacha Reb Yehuda b'mud. The halacha like Reb Yehuda b'mud that it takes 3 days. Why? Sharei Reb Yosy moidoloi. Because Reb Yosy agrees with him. The halacha Reb Meir b'tam and the halacha like Reb Meir b'tam. Why? Sharei Reb Yosy moidoloi. Because Reb Yosy agrees with him as well that in one day become oismud. Amalei Rav Reb Nachman. Rav asked Reb Nachman. V'lei mamar halacha Reb Meir b'mud. Why don't we say halacha Reb Meir b'mud to Reb Shimon moidoloi? Reb Shimon's also a good partner to have. Halacha Reb Yehuda b'tam sure Reb Shimon moidoloi. Amalei, he answered. Reb Nachman answered, Anok Reb Yosy Sfirlei. I like Pascal and Reb Yosy. You know why? Reb Yosy nimuka imai. Reb Yosy always brought rise and support to everything that he said. So therefore, we like Pascal like Reb Yosy, and therefore halacha l'maisa you become a mood in 3 days, but you become ois mood even in 1 day. Valti. So this seems like it's a theoretical shayla about tam and mood, but it's really very relevant halacha l'maisa. Because every time we have a change in neschoyes, like v'sein bracha v'sein talamotar, or mashav ruach or morid agoshem or morid atal, we know that the first 30 days, if you're not sure what you said, you have to go back because we have to assume that your shigur delishna is according to the way you're used to saying. So up until 30 days. Once it's 30 days passed and you've been used to saying it so many times, then we'll assume that you said it right. But there is I believe the shita of a Taz, I think, that holds, what if you want to avoid that suffix period? What you could do is, you can say, Ata givar la'olam Hashem. You don't say that part because you don't want to say Hashem's name. But you can say Mechayim Mesa Mata Rav Loishia Morid Atol, and you can say 90 times in one shot Mechayim Mesa Mata Rav Loishia Morid Atol. After saying it 90 times, that's the equivalent of 30 days. Even though in 30 days you would have said it more because of Musaf on Shabbos and Minch and Rosh Chodesh, but if you say it 90 times, we'll say that you've corrected your Shigur Delishna, and now even if you have a suffix, you can assume you said it right. And there's a machlokes if that works or not. So there are those who want to say that it will be titled in this shaila. Is it a simin or is it a siba? If the reason why it becomes a sharmud after 3 times because it's a siba, you see it's getting into that habit. Well, then oy bazoi, when it comes to these types of things, you could change the habit, and therefore by repeating it 90 times, you can actually change your habit. But if it's just a simin, in other words, it's a gzer sakosov, that if it's shtosh 3 times, that's the simin that it's a muad, but not necessarily that's the behavior change. It just shows us that it's not a mood anymore, but not that it's actually changing in its behavior. Well, then you wouldn't be able to bring a rai from here that it would work. So those are those who want to say it's totally in this side. Behold, it's a siba, that the animal is actually changing its behavior by acting a certain way for a certain amount of time. Well, then maybe that same idea will work when you're training yourself to say the right nusach. But if you hold it just a siman, it doesn't really impact the actual haga. Rather, it's just telling us that's a mood, so then it wouldn't help over here. So that's what the place can discuss. Zok Gemara weiter. Ibaylahu Shloisha Yavim Dikatani. This that for 3 days in a row, we're passing like Rabbi Yehuda, that for 3 days in a row the animal says toish and then becomes a mood. What is that accomplish? Is it liyaude tura, meaning we want to see that the animal became a mood? It's all about telling us about what the animal is. And if it's dies three times in 1 day, that wouldn't show us the animal's nature. Or maybe it's just so that the only way to be mechayiv somebody nezek shalom is if we already showed him 3 times that his animal is need of control, and even after 3 warnings, he's not controlling it. That's what's mechayiv in the nezek shalom. So is it just merely to show us that the animal acted out 3 times, or is it because you need to give the owner 3 warnings? What's the difference in whether or not we're just trying to demonstrate that the shor did it 3 times, or that we're trying to show the owner that its animal damaged 3 times, and therefore the owner needs to be vigilant? The asu tlasa kita sahad. So here it's going to get a little complicated. So let's halka. The asu tlasa kita sahad b'chadjoin. Tuesday morning, 3 sets of Edom show up to best. The first set of Edom said, Reuben, Shor, Max, shtoist on Sunday. The second set of Edom said, Reuben, Shor, Max, shtoist on Monday. And the third set of Edom said, Reuben, Shor, Max, shtoist on Tuesday. But they all came on Tuesday. They didn't come right away to Besdin on Sunday. They didn't come right away to Besdin on Monday. On Tuesday, all 6 Edom, all 3 pairs of Edom, showed up to Besdin at the same time. If it's merely to demonstrate that this ox has touched 3 times, they've done a very good job of demonstrating it. But the gavra, if it's because the person needs to be warned that he has an animal that needs special attention, loy miyayit, it wouldn't work to make the person a mu'id. Why? Meimar Amar, the owner is going to say, Hashtahu, the Kamasalibi. Yes, you said Edis on 3 times, but I'm not paying Nezek Sholem for that time number 3 because I didn't know about it. If I would have known time number 1, I would have known time number 2, then I would pay Nezek Sholem by time number 3. But I didn't know anything until after time number 3. Moving forward, okay, I'll pay Nezek Sholem, but not for what happened in the past. Rashi Hashtahu, the Kamasalibi, he calls Shloshtam. Everyone came together. The Torah says you have to warn me in 3 days. So what is the law? Tashma. Ein ashor nasamud. Ashor doesn't become a mood. Achi iduboy bifnei bailim ubifnei best. Edis has to be in front of the bailim. The bailim have to be aware of it, and of course, Edis always has to be in front of best. Hey, be a boy bifnei best and v'shaloi bifnei bailim. What if all of the 3 sets of Edom came in a timely fashion to Bezdin, but the Bailim were never aware of it? Or Bifnei Bailim, V'lo Bifnei Bezdin, which is not really a proper Eidos, then Ein Nasamud, Hachi Yidu Boy Bifnei Bezdin, U Bifnei Bailim. Heidu Shnayim Berishoy. What if 2 Edom came on Sunday and said, Reuven Shor, Max Stoist, U Shnayim B'Shniyah, and 2 Edom came on Monday and said, Reuven Shor, Max Stoist, U Shnayim B'Shlishis, and 2 Edom came on Tuesday. It said, Max, the shor, stoist again. Hare Khan, Shalish Edjos. You have 3 sets of Edom for incident 1, incident 2, and incident 3. And therefore, each time he pays Chati Nezek, but on the 3rd time, he pays Nezek Shalom. And therefore, on the 3rd time, he'll pay Nezek Shalom. Or on the 4th time, depending on how you learn, but he'll pay Nezek Shalom from now on. Why did he pay Nezek Shalom? It's not merely the last set of Edom that are being mechayiv him as a sholem, because without the first 2 sets of Edom that said the animal stoist prior to this, the animal wouldn't be a mu'id. So who is actually combining into the efforts in order to be mechayiv him as a sholem the 3rd time? Even the first 2 sets of Edom. Therefore, the hein edus achas la'azam. Lagabe azama, we consider all 6 Edom as the pair of Edom that's actually being mechayiv him as a sholem. So therefore, if let's say you're only mas on the last set of Edom, normally you pay kasher zama, and the last set of Edom, when they came and said Edus, they were going to be mechayiv him nezek sholem. So you would think that if they become muzam, they pay nezek sholem. The answer is they don't pay nezek sholem. You know why? Because they can say, without the other Edus, our Edus would not have been mechayiv this owner nezek sholem, because he was still a tam. So therefore, unless all of the Edom are muzam, then you don't say anyone's an Eitzayim. But if all of Edom are muzam, that extra chati nezek, right? The chati nezek, each aid is responsible for their incident. But the fact that the 3rd time he pays nezek sholem, that is a combination of everybody. So therefore, the extra chati nezek that's paid because the animals are mu'id, that expense is shared amongst the 6 aid, if they're muzam. So again, Arekan Shalosh Edyos, Vein edus achas lazam. Lagabi azama, you need all 6 people. They all have to be muzam, and they're all going to share in that expense. Nimtzas. So now let's break it down and see how the chips fall. Nimtzas kat rishonis and memes. What if only the first set of Edom became Edom Zaymimin? The Edom that said that this animal stoiced on Sunday. So the halach is Harei and Shtei Edyois. Now they're broken up into 2 Edyois. V'hu Potter. Kum Techois. The owner will be Potter from paying Nezek Shalom for the last stoicing. Why will he be Potter? Because now we no longer have 3 incidents. Because one of the incidents have been knocked off. V'hein Turin. But all of the Edom are also Potter from paying Nezek Shalom, because in order to be Mechayiv any one of the Edom, the Nezek Shalom that they wanted to wrongfully be Mechayiv, the owner of the ox, you have to be Mazim them all, because they're all part of it. Nimtzas Kachnias Ememes. What if the second set of Edom also became Zememes? Harei Kanedus Achas. You have the same thing. V'hu Potter, he will be Potter from paying Nezek Shalom, because the animal is no longer proven to be a Muvud, because now we only have one set of Edus remaining that his animal stoiced, so you only have proof of one incident. But the Hein Turin, they're still Potter from trying to be Mechayiv and Nezek Shalom, because once again, only 4 out of 6 were Muzam. You need all 6 to be Muzam, because it's the combination of all 6 of them that are Mechayiv and the Nezek Shalom. But Nimtza Kachlishis and Memes, now all of them are Zoyim together, Kulam Chayavim. Each set of Edom is mechuyev to pay the owner of the animal Chati Nezek, because they were trying to be mechayiv Chati Nezek, and all 6 together have to chip in for the other half of Nezek of the last stoicing, that as a combination of all of their efforts he would have had to pay, and they were caught as Edom Zaymin, so they paid to him. Al Zeh Nemar, and that's what the pasuk means when it says Vasisim Loi Kasher Zam. So now that we have this interesting brisa, let's break it down and let's see if we can harvest from here, if it's liyude gavra or if it's liyude the behim. If the reason why these Edom are coming to say testimony is just to demonstrate that this animal is a mu'id, Shapir, it will be very good. And Rashi explains very simply. That's why you had 3 days. Avol Gavra, but if it was only because the person needs to be made aware that his animal is a danger and he needs to watch it carefully, it would have been possible for all 3 sets of Edom to have come on Tuesday and tell us. One tell us that it's stoiced on Sunday, one tell us that it's stoiced on Monday, and one to tell us that it's stoiced on Tuesday. We could have said, they all came on Tuesday. Shavia Nizik Shlishi, the third Nizik, didn't just bring Edom that showed that this animal stoiced my animal, but it could also gather Edom from an incident that occurred on Monday and from an incident that occurred on Sunday. Why does the Nizik of the third animal have an interest in also bringing Edom for 2 other Nizakim? Because by him bringing those 2 sets of Edom, he's going to get Nezek Shalom out of it, not just the Chatzi Nezek. Umisham Hachi, therefore, Shaichi Kamoi B'tzad Hada. Therefore, the first people are involved in this. Shiraglayim L'davar de L'shav Yamoiros. It's clear that the first 2 sets of Edom, the reason why they're coming, who's motivating them? The third Nizik is motivating them. So they're not coming to help the first Nizik and the second Nizik, because otherwise the first Nizik would have brought them and the second Nizik would have brought them. But it's the third Nizik that brought them, so clearly they're just trying to show this pattern that the animal is stoiced, so that the third Nizik will at least be able to get Nezek Shalom. The Lamotzel Meimer Adan L'Chayuvi Pal V'Nizaken Asinon Mikamaisa. They can't say, we don't, even if we were all Muzam, we don't want to pay our share of the Nezek Shalom, because that's not what we came to say. We have nothing to do with the third Nizik. We were just coming to say testimony that his animal stoiced Chaim's animal and Beryl's animal, number 1 and number 2, and all we came to do was to be mechayiv the mazik chati nezek, not nezek shalom. We're not here to cause that the third time we should pay nezek shalom. That's not a good argument for them to say. The vaday hani yodi v'hani. Since we're all coming at the same time and we're being brought by the third nizik, we know what's happening here. We're trying to create this pattern, this precedent, so that on the third time he should pay Nezek Sholim. It's the third Nizik who brought the Edom even for the first two damages. What business is it of the third Nizik, the earlier Negichos that this Shor did? Obviously, it's Elakadei Liyaidoi. It's because the third Nizik wants to prove that this animal is a muad, and therefore the third Nizik will be able to collect Nezek Sholim, and they came all together. So Zok Gemara, Yudi Tura Shopper. Then it makes sense why they had to come on 3 separate days. If they're just trying to show the person that he has an animal that's dangerous, then it should never ever work. You know why it should never work? If you're going to say that the reason why the Brisa said that this occurred on 3 separate days is for Liyudi Gavra, and it won't work to be mechayiv them all part of the Nezek Sholim if they all came the same day. Rather, they had to come on 3 separate days. Right? The Brisa said that the story didn't occur in one day. The story had to occur in 3 separate days. If you hold Liyudi Gavra and it occurred on 3 separate days, you have a big problem. How could you be mechayiv all of these Eidim, the first set and the second set? Al Eidim Zaymin, Lemer Hamach Kamoi, let the first 2 sets of Eidim, the Eidim that are saying testimony on Sunday, and the Eidim that are saying testimony on Monday, Anon Miyav Yadinon, the Basa Shloishi Yoimi, also Hanu Miyadale, Bishlam, if we all came together on day 3, it's obvious that we came for the Nizik of the third Nizik, the Mechayim Nezek Shalom. But if I came on Sunday just for the first Nizik, and you came on Monday just for the second Nizik, and somebody else came for the third Nizik on Thursday, the first 2 sets of Eidim could say, we had no idea that this animal was going to slice again. I had no idea it was going to slice Monday. I had no idea it was going to slice Tuesday. So I came for one reason, for the Nizik of Sunday, for the Nizik of Monday. So therefore, all I should be mechuyev to pay, even if I'm mudam, is Chati Nezek, I shouldn't pay Nezek Sholim. Yet the Brisa says that if they all 3 came on 3 separate days, and they were all muzam, they pay Nezek Sholim. Why? The first 2 sets of Eidim didn't even know that eventually it was going to lead to a Nezek Sholim. Because when they said Eidim, they didn't even know that it was going to shtois again. Amar Ravashi. So you have a Rai Pamir, it must be Liyudei Tura and not Liyudei Gavra. Because only Liyudei Tura wouldn't work on 3 separate days. Amar Ravashi, Amrisa L'Shmaitza Kamei Rav Kahana. I said this over in front of Rav Kahana, and he said, you're in trouble anyway. Yes, you have a very good kasha, that if it's Liyudei Gavra, it wouldn't work on 3 separate days. But he told me, is it any better if you hold Liyudei Tura? You think it's any better that it would work, that they should all have to chip in for the second Chati Nezek of the Nezek Sholim if they all came on 3 days, if it's Liyudei Tura? Let the third set of Eidim say, I'm there in Bezdin. I'm saying Aegis that I saw this animal shtois today. Yes, I saw other people in the waiting room, but I don't know what they're there for. I'm not questioning the guy out, what he's there for. Anan, Mino Yadinon, how am I supposed to know the koi beidina that the other people waiting in Bezdin to speak Lasude Beturakos? I have no idea. I thought that I discovered America. I thought this is the first time on Tuesday that this animal ever shtois. And all I intended to do was to be Michayiv and Chatinez. I have no idea that this animal shtois yesterday and the day before. And now the Yudi Gavra, Pagin is Gustin. So therefore, even if you hold the Yudi Tura, the guys who came last, how are they going to know? Dr. Gemara, the Kamaramzer Muzei, it's speaking in a case where they're all talking to each other. So it's obvious that they're coming as a group, and therefore the third set of Eidim would have known that they're here to be Mechayim from Nezek Shalom. So that is one answer. One answer to explain why is it that the third set of Eidim are Mechuyev to pay for the Nezek Shalom as part of the 3 sets of Eidim that combine to pay Nezek Shalom is because they for sure, it's obvious from the circumstances that when they came, they knew that they weren't just saying Edus to be Mechayah the Chati Nezek. They knew that their Edus was going to lead to a Nezek Shalom because they know that there's 2 other sets of Eidim here coming with them that the Nezek is bringing to say Edus on prior Negichas. So that is one teretz to the brisa. So you still have a brisa that is liyudi tura, but at least now we've emphasized the kasher of Rav Kahana, how it fits in with liyudi tura, because they were all talking to each other. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, Kishabo Ritzufim. It's speaking where they came all together. They came together to say Eidos. They came as a group, as one group to say Eidos. And therefore, since they came as a group to say Eidos, they're coming all at the same time. That's clear that they are working together. Ravina Amar, Ravina is an innovative pshat. It's b'makirin balashor. The Eidim come and say, we saw a shor. Reuven has many different oxen in his herd. We saw one of his oxen stois, but we don't know which one. So each set of Eidim came along and said, we saw one of the animals of Reuven stois, but we don't know which one. The makirin balashor, the ein makirin esesh. And therefore, there is no chatzi nezek at all. Because the halacha is that when you pay chatzi nezek, you pay chatzi nezek migufo, right? But if I'm saying Eidos, a Reuven shor, stois, Shimon shtor, but I don't know which one, and it's speaking where Reuven claims that I sold one of my shorim, I don't have him anymore. It died. It died. If you're only paying migufo, now we can't be mechai Reuven to pay anything, because chatzi nezek only pays migufo, and his animal might have died already. So therefore, clearly, these Eidim cannot be coming here to be mechayiv the chatzi nezek for that time that he stoiced based on their testimony. It's obvious that they're just coming to say that this animal is a mu'ud. But you're going to ask me if they couldn't identify which animal it was, how do they know it's a mu'ud? So for that, Tosfos tells us it's speaking where after all three Eidim said Eidos, they looked through Reuven's herd, and then, oh yeah, that's the one. After the fact, it's only after they said their Eidos, after it became a mu'ud, then they were able to pinpoint which one it was. So there, they can't come and say, I only said Eidos for the chatzi nezek for each of the two first nezikin, because when they came to say Eidos, there was never going to be a chatzi nezek paid, because they couldn't identify which was the animal that did the damage. So Ravina Amar b'makirin balashar vein makirin esishon. So how do the taka become a mud? The Amri, they said, Tura nagachme islach bibkar. All they said was, we know you have an animal that's sliced. We don't know which one. But you're responsible now to watch all of your animals. Why? Because we know you have a dangerous animal. And then after it starts the fourth time, they were able to pinpoint, yes, now I recognize this was the animal that I was always talking about. An interesting twist. Let's see Rashi on this twist. Actually, we can't see Rashi on it because it is 7:44. So we're going to have to go back. What if you sick a dog on somebody else? So Reuven sicks Shimon's dog on Levi. Mahu. Mishasa vade potter. Reuven is for sure potter. He's just a grumma. Bal kelev mai. What about Shimon who owns the dog? And we had this exact shaila yesterday, and we resolve it the same way. Mi amrin, do we say Motzi Amarle, the owner of the dog, can say, Ano Mavidna le, what did I do wrong? It's not my fault that Reuven sicked my dog on Levi. Idil Mamrina le, Kivin diodata bekalbecha. The Meshasi lo mishtasi, since you know that your animal, if someone riles it up and sicks it on somebody, it will react very badly and it will attack that person. You should never have left your animal unattended. That is the Shiloh. I'm observer. So observer tries to be put to the Shiloh. Toshma. It says Vitam. How does an animal become a tam? Even if the children are playing with it and stimulating it and making it a little wild, and it still doesn't start. If it starts, you would be chayiv. So you have a riot that even though your animal didn't start on its own, someone raced it on, it would still be chayiv to pay. So isn't that exactly the case of a mishasa kalush al chaveiroi? If you have a riot that a mishasa kalush al chaveiroi, the owner of the animal is liable because it says Hanageh Chayiv. Omer Abaye said, Mikatani Nogach Chayiv. It doesn't say Nogach if it's stoist. The owner of the ox will actually be Chayiv when the children raised it on. Dilma Hanagach loy have a tam. Maybe if it's stoist, it's not going to be a tam, but you don't pay. So it was a mu'ud. Children raised it on and it's stoist. You're not chayiv because it wasn't your fault. The kids were mishasid. But if it's zoyvad, it makes it that it's still a mu'ud. It won't discharge its mu'ud status because it did stoist. It's still a sharnagach, but you're not going to have to pay. Tashma, shisa boy esakelab or shisa boy nachat. The loch is potter. My love, potter mishasa, the chayiv alakelab, the owner of the animal will be chayiv. Dr. Marloy, ema potter af mishasa, everybody's potter. Amarava, im tim saloimer, a mishasa kalu shal chaveri b'chaveri chayiv. If you're going to hold that if Reuben sicks Shimon's dog on Levi, that the owner of the animal would be chayiv to pay. Again, we have a shayla and we weren't able to prove it. But if in fact he would be chayiv to pay, what would happen if shishehu ba'atzma? You have, again, let's just get clear the case. Reuben is the owner of the animal. Shimon is the villain because Shimon sicked Reuben's dog on Levi. If you would hold that if Shimon sicked Reuben's dog on Levi, Reuben would be chayiv because Reuben owns a dog. What if Shimon tried to sick Reuben's dogs on Levi and Reuben's dog bit him? He got exactly what he deserved. Could he now go to Reuben and say, you got to pay me? If you say hu ba'atzmai, it would still be potter. Why? Because of that svara we had a couple of days ago. My time I call a mishana. Someone who does something that he's not supposed to do wrong. He tries to sick Reuben's dog on somebody, uba'achar v'shina boy, and now the dog was mishana and the dog bit him, potter will be potter. So even if you would hold that Reuben would be chayiv if his dog bit Levi because Shimon sicked it, if the dog bit Shimon, Reuben would be potter because Shimon was a mishana. Amalei Rapapa l'Rava. Rapapa told Rava, Itmar mishmeid Rish Lakish kavasech. You actually are saying good because we heard Rish Lakish said a very similar halach. Domer Rish Lakish, and this was exactly the case that we had a couple of days ago. Shtei paras b'shus harabim. If there are two paras walking in b'shus harabim, and one decides to lie down on the floor and be mishana, achas revutzav achas malachas. One is lying down on the floor as a mishana, and one is a malachas. One is doing its normal job. Ubota malachas b'revusa. And the one that was walking kicked the revutza. The halach is ketura, it's potter. But revutza b'malachas, if the lying animal kicked the walking animal, chayeves, it will be chayev because the walking animal is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So Zok Tumara, you see, it seems like this is Rish Lakishita. Kol HaMishana, U'Bach HaMishina is potter. Amar Lei. So Rava told her Papa, you know something? I disagree with Rish Lakish. I avada hold that if Shimon sicks Reuben's dog on Levi and Reuben's dog bites Shimon, there I hold that Reuben will be potter to pay because its dog bit Shimon. But in the case of the animal on the floor, I would actually hold that if the animal walking kicked the animal on the floor, he'd have to pay. Why? I would be mechayiv the walking animal for kicking the lying animal. We would tell the walking animal, yes, I was mishana, I'm lying on the floor, you have a right to walk over me. And if you would have crushed me by walking over me, there I would hold your potter. But levu to kick me, that you don't have a right to do. That's also not appropriate. Less lachrushus. So therefore, Rav is saying, when the dog is biting, there I'm not going to be mechayiv the owner of the dog to pay. But if my animal kicked wild, there avada I would still be chayiv. Gewalt, zog to Gemara weiter. Shor hamazik b'shus hanizik ketzad. What is the case of shor hamazik b'shus hanizik? Actually, let's stop here. It's a whole new sugya, and it's 10 to 8, so we'll stop here. Be'ez Hashem, we will continue tomorrow. Shkoyach, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.